Hey, it's your friend Christiano, and welcome to the Queer Quest Podcast. Hey, queer fam, welcome back to the Queer Quest Podcast, the space where queerness meets truth, healing, art, and full body yes moments. Today's episode is a deep dive into a part of our culture that is both sacred and strategic. Queer film, or as I like to call it, cinematic soul medicine. This episode is called Top Queer Movies of 2025, Representation, Revolution, and Realness on Screen. And it's not just about what's streaming, it's about what's changing us. So if you get value out of today, which I trust that you will, then can you please do the episode a huge favor and help boost it to others in the queer community by liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, or reviewing us. This is just more than you know towards getting this episode in the hands of the queer people who need it most. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So before I give you my queer watch list of 2025, the indie darlings, the tearjerkers, the cam spectacles, the soft queer romances that made me cry in public, I want to say something loud and clear. Queer movies aren't entertainment. They are blueprints for survival. They are mirrors for our messy, magical lives. They are windows into our queer futures that we haven't even dared to imagine yet. I don't know about you, but when I was younger, I didn't have queer movies that showed me love without punishment. I didn't see queer elders with wrinkles and wisdom, or trans people who weren't plot twists, or lesbians who lived through the final act. And when I did finally see myself on screen, it cracked something open right in here. The first time I saw a queer person choose themselves, not shrink, not apologize, not die, but stand fully in their truth and say, this is who I am, and I will not trade it for anyone's comfort. That moment was kind of a resurrection. So this episode is about more than just what's good this year to watch. It's about who we're seeing represented, how their stories reflect real queer life, what's finally shifting, and what queer cinema still owes us in the queer community. Because yes, we've come far. We've got movies now with trans protagonists, non-binary wizards, polyamorous love triangles in space, sapphics in cozy rom-coms, and queer joy in technicolor. And also, we're still not done. Over the next 20 to 30 minutes, I'm going to guide you through the top queer movies of 2025 that are making waves this year, from festival circuit winners to surprise streaming hits. The characters that held a mirror to our feeling, we're talking about those as well, and the kinds of representation that we still need more of. And why? Why queer cinema is no longer niche, it's necessary. So grab your popcorn, or your tissue box, or your notes app if you're the kind of gay that takes watch lists seriously. We see Virgo placements. Let's start with the top queer films of 2025 so far. And what are they really, really saying? So let's get into it. The films that are shaping queer storytelling in 2025. Now, these aren't just films with gay characters or queer characters. These are films that center queerness not as a plot twist, not as side commentary, but as the emotional core. The films that understand queerness as identity, resistance, as joy, as trauma, as comedy, and as becoming. So let's start with number one, Boy in the Mirror from Brazil. It's a coming of age drama, and the identity focus is on transmasc protagonists, a working class Brazilian culture. Now, this Sundance darling follows a 16-year-old trans boy navigating gender discovery, first love, and family silence in rural Brazil. The story unfolds with surreal dream sequences that reflect Wow's internal transitions, not just of gender, but of soul. Why it matters. There's no grand trauma here, no medical transition fixation, just a trans boy learning how to see himself and be seen in a world that refuses to say his name out loud. Now, my favorite line from the movie is, I don't want to be a boy. I already am. I just want them to look at me when I say it. Powerful, right? This film doesn't shout, it whispers. And somehow, it still feels revolutionary. Let's go to number 2, The Lavender Uprising from the UK. It's a historical resistance drama. And the identity focus is lesbian activists in 1970s Britain. So it's inspired by true events. This film follows a group of queer women, some radical, some reluctant, who unite to disrupt a government-backed anti-LGBTQ campaign in Thatcher-era Britain. Think Suffragette meets Thelma and Louise, with chain-smoking sapphics and typewritten manifestos. Now, why it matters. Too often, queer women's political history is actually erased or softened. Now, this film doesn't just show lesbian rage, it truly honors it. Watching them actually organize, fail, scream, laugh, and love, it reminded me that queer revolution has always been feminine, has always been furious, and deeply, deeply human. It's a must watch, and I recommend checking it out. So let's go on to number 3, which is Club Cosmos, which is a global cast and on Netflix. So it's kind of like a sci-fi musical romance. And in it, we've got polyamorous, neurodivergent, and non-binary leads. Yes, this is the glittery, chaotic, space gay masterpiece that none of us saw coming. It's set in a post-capitalistic galaxy where queer collectives form traveling musical communes, and the story follows 3 entangled lovers as they navigate sound, trust, identity, and emotional memory. So why does it matter? It's rare to see polyamory centered in cinema, and polyamory is part of the LGBTQIA plus queer community. So it's especially, important to see it without moralizing. Add in authentic neurodivergent characters, chosen family dynamics, and a soundtrack that slaps. And you've got queer futurism at its finest. Now, a quote that cracked me open. We don't orbit each other. We collide, and we choose to stay. This is not a film. It's a frequency, okay? So check it out. We've got number 4, which is called Sweet Fruit, Bitter Roots. It's from the US, and it's an indie film. And it's a queer family drama. And so the focus is a Black queer femme lead, intergenerational queerness, and diaspora. Now, a story of a queer Black woman returning to her family home after her mother's passing, only to uncover secrets about her grandmother's own queer past and the unspoken lineage of shame and survival that's been in her bloodline. Now, why does it matter? Because healing ancestral wounds through queer storytelling is sacred work. Because queer Black women deserve stories of complexity, of grief, of softness, and of lineage. Now, it's a film about mourning, not just who we lost, but who we were never got to become because of the silence of our past. Something to check out, especially if you're someone who's into understanding more about intersectionality. Let's go to number 5 now, which is House of Heaven. It's from Germany and France area. And it's a supernatural gothic romance. And the identity focus is on non-binary plus bisexual leads. And it's also got spiritual themes throughout as well. So basically, there's 2 strangers and they inherit a crumbling manor in the countryside. And they uncover that each room reveals visions of queer lives unlived. As they restore the home, they fall into their own deeply intimate haunting. Why does it matter? Because queer spirituality is almost never portrayed without either mockery or some martyrdom. This film blends spirituality, sensuality, the divine, and a reminder that queerness, it isn't new. It's ancient and it's sacred. My favorite line, you weren't a mistake in this house. You were the reason it kept standing. Now it's ghostly, it's erotic, it's holy, it's queer cinema at its most metaphysical. So, what's the common thread in all of these? Now, they are unapologetically emotionally intelligent. They don't flatten queer people into tropes. They don't just show our pain, they show our layers. We see soft masculinity in trans boys, Black queer femme lineage across generations, joy and chaos in neurodivergent polyam queer love, queer rage as resistance, queer ghosts as guides, and even though these films are wildly different, they all point towards one truth, which is that queer cinema is becoming less about proving our humanity and more about exploring the depths of it, which is exactly what we need here in 2025. So now that we've looked at who's on screen, let's talk about who isn't. What's still missing? What kind of queer lives are still not being seen, respected, or imagined in film? Hey love, while I've got you, I want to gift you with something powerful. Something I wish I had when I was cracked open and crawling through the mess of heartbreak, shame, and that deep ache of, why am I like this? If you've ever felt like healing is this confusing, invisible maze where you're just surviving one emotional breakdown after another. If you've been wondering, is something wrong with me? I want you to know, you're not lost. You're not broken. You're becoming. Most queer people were never given a roadmap for healing. We were taught to hide, to perform, and to shrink. We've been gaslit by religion, erased by culture, and taught to just get over it. But healing isn't a straight line, especially when you're queer. It's not just about feeling better. It's about coming home to your queer, radiant, whole hour self. That's why I created the Journey to Queer Healing, a free guide that maps out the 18 emotional stages of queer healing. It's not just theory, it's your soul's survival map. You'll see where you are, what's next, and what's possible on the other side of the pain. This guide has helped hundreds of queer people realize it's not just me. I'm not behind. I finally understand what I'm going through. Download the guide today. Let it remind you, your healing isn't random. It's divine. Download it now via the link in the show notes. Or you can comment guide on this video or on any of my socials and I'll send it directly to you. And when you're ready to go deeper, join us for the Queer Comeback webinar. Let's make your healing sacred and make your comeback legendary. I'll see you on the journey. So, we've looked at what's working, what's thriving, what's bringing queer stories to the screen with nuance, with power, and truth. But if we're going to be real, and you know we always are here on the Queer Quest podcast, then we also need to talk about what's still missing. Because for every beautifully queer film that graces our screens, there are still entire dimensions of our community that actually remain in the shadows. And we need to do something about it. We need to talk about it. We need to bring it to the awareness so that we can also have other people within the LGBTQIA plus community be seen and represented in the cinema movies moving forward. So let's start with number one, the erasure of asexuality. Where are the asexual protagonists? Where are the stories that center intimacy without sex? Where's the exploration of queer platonic love, deep companionship, chosen family without romantic entanglement? The few asexual characters we do get are either treated like emotionless robots or placeholders for trauma. Let me say this. Asexuality is not a lack, it's a spectrum, a rhythm, a sacred orientation in its own right. We need films that don't just acknowledge it, but celebrate it. Number two, fat queer bodies as main characters. Yes, I said it. We still live in a world and an industry where the only acceptable queer leads are thin, fit, and camera ready. Fat people who are queer exist. They fall in love, they fuck, they fight, they parent, they lead revolutions. But in film, there's still the sexy friend or the tragic lesson. We need fat queer leads who are not comic relief, who are desirable, powerful, sexy, and fully complex. Number 3, queer disability representation. Where are the queer folks navigating disability with agency and depth? Too often, if a character is disabled and queer, one of those identities gets erased, or worse, used to frame them as broken or pitiful. But what if we told stories where disability and queerness weren't struggles to be overcome, but portals to deeper ways of living, loving, and seeing the world? We're long overdue for characters who exist at the intersection of queerness and disability without apology. Number 4, queer elders deserve the spotlight. Where are the older queer characters who aren't dying, who aren't lonely, or aren't bitter? Where's the 65-year-old lesbian carpenter who builds furniture and falls in love with a poet at the community center? Where's the trans elder who runs a queer retreat in the mountains and passes on their legacy? We need stories of queer aging that aren't tragic. We need to see what long-term queer love, queer grief, queer legacy looks like. Not just what it costs, but what it creates. Number 5, faith and queerness. Not mutually exclusive. We still rarely see queer characters who have spirituality that isn't rooted in trauma or rejection. What about queer Muslims in love during Ramadan? Queer witches finding divine connection through ritual? Queer Christians reclaiming sacred texts and building affirming communities? We are spiritual. We've always been. We deserve stories that show the integration of queer identity and spiritual truth, not just their opposition. And 6, joy without justification. And this one might be the most radical. We need more queer joy. Just because. Not earned through suffering, not squeezed in after a climax of pain. Just joy. Give me a gay rom-com where the biggest tension is, I like them too much and it's freaking me out. Give me a sapphic road trip that ends in a beach proposal. Give me a non-binary character who wins the dance battle and gets the last slice of cake. Because joy is not shallow, it's a birthright. And in a world that teaches us to anticipate violence, joy becomes an act of resilience and of resistance. So if you're a filmmaker, a writer, a creative out there listening, ask yourself, who are you afraid to put on screen? Whose story do you wish you'd seen growing up? What would change if you saw yourself not just surviving, but thriving on screen? Hey babe, quick moment before we dive back in. I have a question for your soul. Have you ever felt like you lost yourself somewhere along the way? Maybe it was the breakup that shattered you, or the years spent hiding, bending, blending just to feel safe. Or maybe it's the quiet ache that whispers there has to be more to this life than just surviving. Well, I want to invite you to something that's not just a webinar. It's a comeback, a queer one, a sacred, fabulous, F the rules kind of comeback. It's called the Queer Comeback Webinar. And inside, I'm sharing the 3 secrets every queer soul needs to know to come home to themselves, unapologetically, spiritually, powerfully. This isn't about fixing you, because you're not broken. This is about remembering who the F you are. If you're tired of dimming your light, people pleasing, or playing small just because of society's judgment, come. This is your moment. Not someday, not when, you're more ready. Now. Tap the link in the show notes or just comment comeback and I'll send you the link. Reserve your free spot now. And if you're multitasking right now, pause this video for just 1 second and do this for you. Your comeback isn't deserved, It's overdue. I'll see you there, my love. On screen. Let's talk about the real reason we show up for queer movies again and again. It's not just the stories. It's not just the representation. It's the characters. The ones who feel like someone you've met before or someone you always needed. The ones who cracked you open with one line. The ones who felt like your inner child finally seen. Or the bold, brazen, don't give a queer archetype you're still trying to become. These characters, they don't just entertain us. They heal us. They haunt us. They become part of us. Now, Luca from Boy in the Mirror, a trans boy navigating silence with softness. He doesn't scream to be heard. He becomes the mirror no one else dared to hold up. He made me remember what it was like to want to be known before I even knew who I was. He made me want to whisper less and stand taller. We've got Ezra from Club Cosmos, neurodivergent, non-binary. Ezra isn't a trope. They're a fucking mood. They love in frequencies, they feel in colors, and they show us a kind of queer love that isn't about performance, but presence. Ezra didn't fall in love. They tuned into it. And I felt that in my bones. Delilah from the Lavender Uprising, a 40-something lesbian activist who's tired, brave, messy, and done waiting for permission to be furious. Delilah taught me that sometimes the most radical thing a queer woman can do is refuse to explain herself. She lit a match and didn't flinch. Now, we've got Juno and Marin from House of Heaven. Two queer souls haunted by lives they never lived and yet choosing to love anyway. What I loved about them was how sacred queerness felt. Not sinful, not scandalous, but holy, like coming home. Amina from Sweet Fruit Bitter Roots, a queer black woman caught in the space between legacy and liberation. She doesn't get a clean ending. She gets a complicated truth. And somehow, that's just deep and more honest. She mourned the past, but didn't let it decide her future. And maybe that's what makes these characters iconic. Not because they're perfect or even particularly brave, because they are deeply human. They remind us that queerness isn't a genre. It's not a side plot. It's a way of moving through the world with complexity, with humor, with fire, with fragility, and fierce-ass love. These are the characters who live rent-free in our chests. They help us rewrite our own scripts. They make us feel less alone in the quietest corners of our lives. And when we leave the theater, or we close the laptop, or we wipe the last tear, they stay. Because great queer characters don't just end with the credits, they echo. In our final part of the podcast, we're going to look ahead. What's next for queer film? What stories do we need to tell? And how can we be part of the queer cinematic revolution? So here we are. We've laughed. We've cried. We've screamed, "Yes, Queen," at our screens. We've honored what's good, called out what's missing, and fallen in love with the characters who mirror our souls. But the most important question still remains. Where do we go from here? Because as much as queer cinema has evolved, we're still not done. We're not even close. We are living through a queer cultural renaissance, and we have the power to shape it. So number one, we need more queer characters and more queer creators, okay? Representation is great, but what we truly need is creative control. We need more queer directors, queer writers, queer editors, queer producers, queer cinematographers, queer stylists, queer sound designers, and queer gate openers behind the scenes, not just in front of the camera. Because when queer people own the frame, the story shifts from survival to sovereignty. We need global queer narratives. Let's move beyond New York, London, and LA. Let's hear from queer Palestinians living through occupation, trans artists in India navigating tradition and liberation, queer elders in Kenya passing on oral histories, Pacific Islander femmes reclaiming spiritual identity and storytelling. We're ready for cinema that doesn't just feature queer people, but honors the full global spectrum of queer experience. 3, we need queer movies that don't apologize. Let's stop introducing queerness through the lens of explanation. Let us exist. Let us fuck up. Let us be mediocre, messy, brilliant, absurd, awkward, spiritual, divine, lonely, funny, whole. Not every queer movie has to be a political statement. Sometimes, yes, sometimes the revolution is in letting a queer person be boring on screen and still be worthy of love. Number 4, we need you. And this might be the realest part of all. Now, if you're listening to this podcast, I already know that you've got a story inside you. Maybe it's a half-written script, a scene that plays in your head when you're falling asleep, a monologue you whispered in the mirror once when no one was watching. Maybe it's a poem, a daydream, a line of dialogue you're too afraid to say out loud. I'm telling you, your story matters. Because if you don't tell it, who else will? And what queer kid might never know it was possible to be them because they didn't see you? You don't have to be a filmmaker to change queer cinema. You just have to be brave enough to tell your truth. So here is your invitation. Watch queer movies, yes, but also support queer filmmakers. Write the thing, pitch the story, film the weird little indie no one else understands. Fund the messy queer visions that don't fit the algorithm. And most of all, keep dreaming into the future that we're building. Because queer cinema isn't a trend. It's a movement. It's a memory. It's a mirror. And it's a map. Thank you for listening to this special Pride Month episode of the Queer Quest podcast. We've just moved into the final days of this now. So if this episode has lit something up in you, share it with your queer crew, your film nerd friends, or that one cousin who still hasn't seen Heartstopper. You know the one. We've also got an episode all about the top queer shows of 2025, so you can check that one out as well. And if you want to go deeper into your own story, join us inside Queer Press Pro. We're building a movement of creators, of healers, and queer visionaries who are rewriting the story of what's possible. Now, if you got value out of today, which I trust that you have, then can you please do the episode a huge favor and help boost it to others in the queer community by liking and commenting and sharing and subscribing and reviewing us. This is just more than you may know towards getting this episode in the hands of the queer people who need it most. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Until next time, keep loving boldly, keep watching queerly, and keep being the kind of story that deserves to be told. I'll be back very soon, and always remember that you've got this, and I've got you. Bye for now. Hey love, before you go, I need to tell you something important. You weren't meant to do this healing journey alone. You weren't meant to figure out your queer identity, your purpose, your healing, your worth in silence. So if you've been listening and thinking, I'm ready, I want to transform, I want to live fully, I just don't know how, this is your sign. This is your queer comeback. Welcome to Queer Quest Pro, a revolutionary 12-month journey of queer healing, growth, and transformation in every area of your life. From your mental and emotional health to your spiritual connection, purpose, finances, identity, relationships. This is your full circle evolution. We guide you month by month through the queer wellness wheel of life with workshops, live coaching, quests, rituals, and a global community of queer souls rising together. It's the place for woke queer humans who are ready to rise unapologetically. Because healing is hard, but healing in community, that's sacred. And baby, you deserve sacred. Are you ready to live a life that actually feels like yours? Click the link in the show notes to join us now. Doors are open. We're waiting for you inside. This is your comeback. Don't miss it.